Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. Today I have something really cool for you. I need to start working on some more main elements for one of the productions that I'm working on, and I thought we could do that together. So this is the track that I'm currently working on. I've shown it off in a couple of other videos, but for those that are unfamiliar with it, this is what it sounds like. Now originally I had this particular sound in here. Now it is a nice digital sound, it has some nice characteristics and it has a nice tonality to it, but it didn't really stand out from the track. Currently, all of the elements feel like they're on the same level of importance, in that the sound design doesn't permit one of them to really stand out and be the main element. So I want to change that by maybe having something a little bit more melodic, maybe a melodic arp, something like that. Alright, so starting the sound design for something melodic, a few things that I like to do is maybe set up the pitch bend. Make sure that it's -12 and 12 over here. Usually with melodic sounds, I like a little bit of glide, so I'll enable that. Alright, so now let's worry about the main texture, and I want a little bit more of a washed out sound. There's two ways of achieving that. For one, what we can do is we can add some extra voices. In this particular case, I'm going to do that an octave higher. And then we can also smoothen out this waveform by going in here and then clicking randomize all. Let's pass all of this mess through a filter so that we can make it into something a little bit more interesting. And let's make it so that we can control the filter over here with two different macros. There's a very good reason for doing that, and that is so that with this one you can determine the rhythmic movement, and then with this one you can determine the progressive movement. So how the sound progresses over a long period of time versus how the sound progresses over a short period of time. Now I'm going to add a MIDI clip over here that is 2 bars long. So we're going to start writing the melody now. It's a little bit high. Also we have the filter very low, so maybe it's nice to temporarily turn that off. It might be nice to turn off the always over here so that it doesn't pitch up like that. Maybe a bit longer portamento time. Then I would like another impact sound here. Okay, that's maybe a cool rhythm. Let's think about some of the melody that we want to do. That sounds cool, and now we can introduce the filter over here so that we can actually determine the movement. Let's add a little bit of distortion to this. Let's duplicate this over. Of course, we make sure that the automation comes with that. And now we get to open up this macro over here over time. As you can see, I didn't really explain much of what I was doing. Usually when this kind of stuff happens, when I'm writing a main element, I really have to get into the flow of writing when it comes to the crucial aspects of it, which is of course the details in the main tonality. That is why you saw me editing some stuff over here, some stuff in the effects over here, and then some details in the processing. In this case, we have an OTT, and I was going to EQ it over here to remove any of the lower frequencies that might remain from this OTT over here. And the same was kind of true with the melody. I didn't really explain how to make the melody here. And that is really because when it comes to the melody specifically, I don't exactly know what I'm doing. Like even with the processing and stuff like that, it's not like I'm exactly aware of, oh, this is what I'm going to do, that is what I'm going to do. I kind of get into a flow and then I just do whatever I feel is right. And trying to explain that flow is a little bit hard, but what I can do is go back into it after the fact and make some explanations based on what I was thinking in the moment that I was actually in that flow state of actually writing. So when it comes to the melody, what I really wanted to do was 1, have these nice glides in here, and then 2, have this up and down motion that really follows kind of the pattern of the bass line over here. Do you hear how in this second part over here we have the ting-ka-ding-ting, which is coming from the actual way that the velocity is set over here and over here. These two obviously being different the first time around versus the second time around, and I wanted to play with that pattern a little bit by writing something that's actually counter to that, in the sense that this pattern of highlighted notes over here, the higher notes, really is the opposite of what the bass pattern is doing, in the sense that here the offbeat is being accentuated, while in the other part over here, as you can see, it is actually those 2 notes which gets more accentuated. Meaning that this is kind of like a counter rhythm to the main rhythm of the bass line, which is very interesting. And then of course, from that point on, I decided to write the second part of it over here, based on kind of like how that felt with the first part over here. You may have noticed that when I started writing it, I first wrote out the rhythm and the overall texture of the notes, and then I actually started putting the notes in the right spots and just testing a whole bunch of different combinations there. And to be fair, with the melody, I'm not exactly happy with it yet. What I want to see is what happens when I start adding delay and reverb to it, because that can really transform a melody into either something better or something a lot worse. Then within the patch, the few things that I changed was mainly the way that the oscillators were set up in relationship to the unison here. I set this to 3 unison voices here. And then I also set up velocity so that we have a velocity pattern that actually follows the velocity that we set down below here. The only difference that we have is that these lower notes are a little bit lower in velocity, so they're not as extreme, they're not as upfront. And in the effects, I added a chorus and a dimension to have a little bit more of a rich character before we go into the distortion, which I set to a different type here, because I thought the other one was a little bit too aggressive for where I wanted it to be. What may be interesting is to do a little bit of a trance gate on this. As you can hear, it has a little bit more of a rhythm now, with the way that it's being chopped up. I set it in front of the OTT just so that we have it earlier in the chain, and therefore the OTT can kind of smoothen out the effect. So now let's add some of that magic, which is going to be the delay and the reverb. I'm going to go with Echo Boy Jr. over here because I really like some of the characteristics that it has. Specifically, maybe the transient or the memory is going to work over here in terms of these 7 settings that you see over here. Bit of reverb to smooth it out even more. I'm just going to go for a very small reverb because I want a really small space so that the delay and the actual main sound can actually stand out a little bit more. It doesn't get as muddy as it would be with a longer reverb. I think still the melody isn't exactly where I want it to be. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to set this to closer to the root note. I think the distortion maybe still is a little bit too much. Maybe we'll try a different type here. Maybe a little bit less resonance over here. I'm just not really a fan of the hollow tonality that we're seeming to get here. Well, it seems that I'm not able to get the characteristics out of the sound that I want. So one of the things that you can do in this situation is use something like a different synthesizer. Either that or you can completely change your mind. To be honest, I like the idea of having like a melodic jumping around synth in here, but I just don't like the texture that we're getting out of Serum. So I'm just going to go with Vital here. What I'm quickly going to do is copy over all of the processing that I have, excluding that last EQ that I tried to use to get the tone that I wanted, but ultimately failed at. What would be cool is to add maybe a second modulation to this. Let's go with like a phaser here. Kind of your traditional classical way of doing that. Okay, let's duplicate this over so that it has the same length. And now let's see what happens if we play this like so. Of course, I have to disable this other one over here. honestly, when it comes to this particular idea, I'm not entirely sold on this. My whole idea for this video was for me to just sit down and make an element from scratch, but I'm not really getting the vibe that I'm going for with this one. There's a few things that can be wrong with this idea. For a start, this is one of the projects where I'm really working with the grid synths. This is something that I talked about in another video where in order to spice up the track a little bit, what I'm essentially doing is I'm just using the grid synths everywhere and then I'm changing main elements in between. And that is a workflow that I haven't really worked with before. So it's just something different that I have to get used to. Maybe I need to address the way that I'm creating main elements. Maybe I need to address the way that I'm adding them to the track or that I'm mixing them in. Of course, this is still the production stage, so there is going to be a whole other mixing stage, but an element has to fit well in the production stage for it to be able to actually work in the mixing stage as well. So right now, even though I didn't make a sound that I'm actually happy with, I'm hope that I could still teach you some cool sound design things and that I could just explain my workflow a little bit better. Also, I think this is a good example of some of the realities of producing in that there's going to be sounds that you're just not going to like. In the way that I didn't like the sound that we initially had in here, then we make a sound to replace it. That doesn't really work. We retry to make something similar inside of Vital. And to be honest, even that doesn't really work in the track for me. Sometimes you just have one of those moments where stuff just doesn't work and you have to accept that. And you can try to work through it and sometimes it does produce good results. But other times it means that you spent a whole production session doing nothing. Now normally, as you can imagine, if a video has this result where I don't really achieve the thing that I wanted to achieve, I don't really post it. I don't have an incentive to post it. I just think that it would be a bad video. But to be honest, I'm just going to post this one. One, I have a little bit of a time issue in the sense that I'm going to go away in a few days, so I need to pre-record videos in advance, meaning that there's a little bit more pressure on me to just keep making videos. But also, I thought it would give you a good view of an actual production of mine and some of the issues that I walk into in terms of creativity. Maybe if you have a cool idea for where I can take this track, then let me know down in the comments. But for now, this is going to be the video. It turned out a little bit different than expected, but I hope that you still enjoyed it. Let me know if you did by leaving a like and make sure that you subscribe to the channel. Also, you can support me by watching some more of my content, so I'll leave 2 more videos up on the screen for you to choose from. So just pick one and enjoy, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye bye.